Hello, and welcome to another episode of AI and Sustainability, a podcast series that explores the important intersection of digital transformation and sustainable development. I'm Nafisa, and each episode we meet with leading experts, educators, and youth leaders to discuss how emerging technologies impact the way we live, work, and connect. In today's episode, we're exploring a timely question. How will AI-driven transformation impact higher education? Joining us today is Bernardo Mariano Junior, Chief Information Technology Officer at the United Nations, who will help us unpack the opportunities, challenges, and key considerations that come with AI-driven digital transformation. Do not miss out on the important insights about how AI is reshaping how we learn, teach, and think about knowledge in the digital age. Start with asking you to introduce yourself, just the work you do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. My name is Bernardo Mariano Junior. I am the Assistant Secretary General, Chief Information Technology Officer for United Nations, headquartered in New York. And I'm responsible for anything digital, anything information technology and communications in the United Nations Secretariat.
And let me jump straight to the first question. The year 2024 was a landmark year for multilateral cooperation, especially with key United Nations events like Summer of the Future and the lead up to COP29. So from your perspective, what kind of progress has been made through these events in terms of advancing international guidelines, frameworks, or even formal agreements to govern AI responsibly?
Yes, indeed, 2024 has been a year where the Pact of the Future and the Global Digital Compact was adopted by the General Assembly. So the Pact of the Future is not legally binding, but it was signed by 193 countries or the United Nations member states. And this Pact of the Future has also what's called Global Digital Compact, which represents really a very first historic framework on digitalization. It's anchored on human rights, sustainable development, and is centered on international cooperation and the universal principles of fair, inclusive digital future for everyone. So this Global Digital Compact has 5 commitment actions: close the divide. I'm from the Global South, and there are people from Global North. So we need to close that divide. Foster secure digital space and human rights. We want to make sure that the fact that the digital space does not have physical borders doesn't mean that crimes that one individual commit and then impact somebody in a different legislation goes unpunished. We want responsible, equitable, and interoperable data governance. So that's where we have the tech giants hosting data of the whole world. So we want that responsible and equitable data governance. That's the 4th commitment action of the Global Digital Compact. And the 5th and the last one is really international governance of AI to benefit everyone. And the AI is 60 years of age, so it started 60 years ago, but the generative AI is the latest transformation that really we want to make sure that both the Global North and the Global South takes benefits from this. And the benefits can be seen in all sectors. In education, you can imagine a child in the remote village of Mozambique. I'm from Mozambique. And suddenly has access to generative AI for education at the primary school. So you can imagine how that can transform that child in terms of knowledge or ability to quickly absorb and learn from the power of generative AI. So we want that to happen around the world. So this Global Compact is looking at how countries are evolving in those 5 commitment items. And
so if we can summarize those 5 commitment items again, what would they be?
So close the divide, expand inclusion, secure digital space and human rights, data governance, and AI to benefit everybody. My dream is really, if I think of AI in education, how can it be a powerful force to advance education for all, and both from access, but also from the quality perspective. And it will elevate the quality of learning. It will elevate the quality of teaching. It will elevate the outcome in terms of readiness of these and the next generation to really extract the maximum value of technology. But you have to remember, even a knife or a hammer can be used for good or for bad. So in the digital ecosystem, it's the same principle. So the great tools in the wrong hands can be extremely dangerous.
So could you share some noteworthy examples of successful projects that you and your team have led, especially those that leverage AI in innovative or high impact ways?
So in the United Nations, we have a lot of knowledge in terms of, it's a knowledge-based organization. So if you ask what we have, in addition to the direct support in a humanitarian situation or peacekeeping situation, supporting the civilians, member states or countries, governments, we also have an immense amount of knowledge that since the UN was created 80 years ago, we accumulated. And this knowledge is important because decisions that we take today cannot be contradicting completely something that we took in the past. And if we contradict, we have to be conscious of that contradiction. So one of the areas that we are using generative AI is really to tap into this immense knowledge that the United Nations have about the resolutions, the decisions taken, and to make sure that the new decisions are taken based on those resolutions, and colleagues, both member states, countries, as well as staff, can interact with this knowledge base in a way that was not possible before. We have somewhere around 40 use cases ongoing, at least in the Secretariat only, and we are now looking at which one we want to put a large investment to scale up, to create a new transformative way that the United Nations use generative AI to serve the member states, but also to serve the communities that we assist.
And when you mention cases that you have, do you mean cases of application in different countries of Global South, Global North, or what specifically are you referring to?
Yes, we do have in the United Nations 716 AI-related projects across 50 organizations in the UN system. Right?
Wow.
Like many other sectors, we are still playing with the tools, especially generative AI. Right? So I think that's so in terms of scaling up, we have not reached the maturity to say, look, now we're going to put a huge investment in one of them. So all of them are still pilot stage. That's why I call them use cases. That some of them quite advanced than others, to still test the technology, see how we can extract the greatest benefit. Of course, in the process, why we have those 716 pilots and we haven't scaled, because we also want to be conscious about where we put our investment, because investing on a generative AI, it's a large investment. I think at this stage, right, resources is not, is very scarce. And we want to also make a good use of taxpayers' money. Therefore, we want to be careful in terms of where do we invest.
This is actually related to my follow-up question. I wonder what kind of challenges you have encountered along the way implementing some of those projects, and more importantly, what lessons have we learned?
I think one of the challenges and also lesson is I mean, we talk about biases in what generative AI generates, right? I mean, the expectation, what we learned as well from those pilots is that the bias is not removed by itself, because if the bias is already embedded in the data, AI outcome will have biases as well. So I think being aware of our own biases is important to make sure that we identified in the outcome the training of AI is very important. Of course, we have to also make sure that the benefits of those who own the platforms, those who train the platforms, and those who consume this content is shared in an equitable way.
And you mentioned bias in AI, and this is actually the very first topic that we explored in this podcast with the rector of the United Nations University. So I encourage our listeners to go to our first podcast episode and listen to our rector speak about bias and how we can deal with it and overcome it.
I'm sure he must have spoken about synthetic data.
Yes, yes, we did, and we tried to break it down to kind of make it more digestible. And I personally learned a lot about how important it is to maintain equity principles in both the teams that are working on the data, the teams that are designing this digital solutions. So everything that you've mentioned, very important. I want to kind of go back to the theme of this podcast, the intersection of AI and sustainability, and ask you, how can a culture of sustainability be embedded when leveraging AI technologies?
I think we have to always connect any technology or any transformation that the world is witnessing with the Sustainable Development Goals, right? And then see where we are on those. We said only 12% of 17 targets of SDGs are on track. And then see how technology, digital technology, and AI in particular, can be an enabler to accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. I mentioned, for instance, if I take the SDG 2, the zero hunger, how can precision agriculture optimize farming techniques by analyzing imagery, satellite imagery data, soil data, climate conditions to help farmers increasing their production and reduce the resource usage, such as water and others. If I take, for instance, the SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, we're working with a university in Hamburg and the UN Habitat in a tool powered by AI to support urban planning, right? If you look at what's happening now, war in Ukraine, and then cities that are developing in the global south, and slums that are around the city. So how can we use AI to help city planners, mayors, to actually create predictive models of development and create these sustainable cities and sustainable communities? The linkage between AI and digital technologies and sustainable developments can really drive us towards an outcome that this generation will be happy to leave for the next generation and look back with pride that, yes, in our time, we did the right thing, we took the right decision, and we made right choices to support the sustainable development of humanity in a way that allowed us to use these transformative technologies to do that.
And let me ask a question about higher education institutions specifically, because they have long been hubs of innovation, research, capacity building. And in today's rapidly evolving, digital landscape, their role seems even more important, perhaps more complex than ever. So based on your experience, what roles do universities and other higher education institutions play in both driving and supporting digital transformation?
What I like about the education sector is that both the student and the teacher are continuously learning. It's a continuous learning. It's one of the few professions that you have to continuously learn.
It never stops.
It never stops. And my hope, dream, and plea is that in that continuous learning, we bring the digital literacy at the forefront, because that's the new way humans and machines are interacting. And there's a relationship that we need to master, and a relationship that we need to address the risks, but also it's a relationship that we need to make sure that we extract all the benefits while mitigating the risks. I see the role of a higher education institution crucial to create a sustainability on the use of technologies and the use of the transformative role of technology in any country, starting with creating communities of practice on, for instance, open source. Governments that cannot afford to pay large amounts of money to the big intellectual property platform owners should not feel constrained.
So in your view, in what ways can AI digitally transform higher education institutions?
I mean, if you ask me what dream would I have, my dream would be that I could have a solution on the box, that I can put it in a country that needs that solution, and then they can extract the value immediately, right? And that solution should be an open source solution that everybody can use. Nobody has to pay license, but then everyone can extract those benefits, especially the global south, because you need to not leave anyone behind as part of the SDG. And once you have that, innovation will come immediately. It is where I see the power of AI models that would really perform and create these ecosystems where you have a neutral spaces for AI evaluations and AI performance that in a higher education institution can experiment and can look at some of these advanced analytics within the university or higher education context to see how they can tackle these world problems.
Regarding UN's current work on AI governance and regulation in the global AI space. So what role do you see UN playing in building the global AI governance?
The regulations, I think now is the right time to come with some of the regulations. Since 2022, I think we are now past the plateau of that hype cycle. So we're getting into the real capacity of Gen AI. And I think that this is the right time to talk about regulation, because then we'll be talking about what the technology does and how we can prevent it from misuse and how we can minimize the risk. We have these data privacy principles that many regions and countries have applied. So data sovereignty, the rights to be forgotten, all these data governance principles that is important for citizens. Because if I am using a tool, I have the right to say, a tool, I don't want you to remember me because I don't want, then delete all my data, right?
Yeah.
So those governance principles on data is important because data is a new gold. If you think that the data that some of these large platforms, the data that they have and the value they extract out of it, so it's basically the monetization of that data versus what the data owner gains out of that monetization. Because if my data is contributing for an insight and a prediction using a tool, there's always a debate of whether I shouldn't also be compensated for that, right? So the data, that's why I say data is a new gold, because in that digital ecosystem, if you take the data out of it, then the digital ecosystem value is zero, okay? So therefore, the role of the United Nations is really to, and through the Global Digital Compact, is to see how we can create that right balance of the regulation, the global regulation on AI, but also a good governance of data. Today, what I mentioned about, I just get the example I gave of data is maybe is something that people think, oh, maybe that is not fair because the platform owner invested billions of dollars to develop the platform. But if that platform did not have my data, the value of that will be basically zero, or the profitability of that platform will not be there. So I think those are some elements, some tough discussions, I have to say, that we need to have on how we can create this equitable share in a way that me as a data provider, the platform owner as the owner of that particular computing power and algorithm, and me or you as a benefit of the insights that the algorithm gives, we all kind of benefit from the fact that I provided the data, or 4 billion people provided the data, and 4 billion people are using that data, and the platform owner created the space and environment for that to happen.
To wrap up our discussion here, speaking as the Chief Information Technology Officer of the United Nations, what is your message to the higher education sector?
What happened in one corner of the world impacts the other corner of the world in a matter of seconds. So let's work together to bridge that global digital divide and ensure that the benefits of technology reaches everyone, everywhere.
And now it's time for our final segment, the recurring segment of rapid fire questions. And this is where we shift gears a little bit, and I ask a few quick, thought-provoking questions, and I hope to get candid, short, instinctive responses from you. And to make things even more interesting, I also will pose the same question to Gen AI. And it's a fun way to compare perspectives and spark conversations about how humans and machines think differently, or sometimes maybe surprisingly similar. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's dive in. Please provide your favorite statistics related to AI.
ChatGPT had 1 million users within the first 5 days of being available.
Perfect. Describe AI in 3 words.
Algorithm, data, and the power of computing.
And it ties to our third question, which is AI glossary of terms. What is AI?
Well-defined or human intelligence in a machine.
Perfect and concise. And what is an algorithm? The key word of our discussion today.
A sequence of instructions to solve a particular problem.
Perfect. And to summarize what we discussed today, our conversation, the leading question: how will AI-driven transformations impact higher education?
By taking the level of delivery of education to the next level, by bringing the insights that were not accessible to teachers, that are not connected to the internet, or they're not connected to the digital ecosystem.
Now let's ask the same question to Gen AI tool and listen to its response.
AI is set to shake up higher education big time, making learning super personal by looking at how each student learns best and what they need to focus on. Think custom lessons and AI tutors that are always ready to help, making education way more accessible, especially for those who need extra support. It's not just for students, though. Teachers can get a hand with creating materials and even grading, freeing them up to actually teach and come up with new ideas. Research is also getting a boost, with AI crunching tons of data to speed up discoveries. On the admin side, things could get smoother too, from applications to student support, making the whole university experience less of a headache. But it's not all smooth sailing. We've got to watch out for biases in AI, keep student data safe, and figure out how to handle AI-generated work so everyone plays fair. Plus, we need to make sure tech doesn't replace real human connection in learning. The future will probably be a mix of AI smarts and good old human interaction, where we teach everyone how to use these new tools wisely and keep focusing on those uniquely human skills that AI can't touch. It's all about finding the right balance to make higher education better for everyone without losing what makes it special.
Well, Bernardo, what is your reaction after hearing Gen AI's response?
I would ask Gen AI to summarize that response.
It was very long. You provided us with a concise.
But I think it touched upon a number of topics that we discussed, from the biases and all the rest, and how teachers and students can really take advantage of the technology as a tool. So I think, I did like the response.
Great. Well, unfortunately, it's all the time that we have today. Bernardo, thank you so much for your thoughtful insights and this far-reaching conversation. Your insights on global governance, innovation, and the future of education have been incredibly valuable. So we're happy that you could join us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nafisa. Thank you, United Nations University for this podcast and for the interesting discussion today.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Let me thank our guest, Bernardo Mariano Junior, once again for joining us and offering such thoughtful insights. These conversations are the reason we created this podcast, and we hope you found today's discussion as engaging and thought-provoking as we did. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with a friend. Thank you for listening, and until next time.